Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is, and in this video I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm not going to be recording a live video. The footage you're going to see in this video is something, are all clips and so on that have been previously recorded, and I am doing a voiceover after the fact. I wanted to use this type of video to showcase the process that I took when building my woodshop desk. Ever since I moved into the house that I'm currently in right now, my first house, I've been trying to do a lot of different things as far as woodworking goes. I made a dining room table, which I've made a video on. I've also made an outdoor kitchen table for cooking and cutting and so on, which I have made a video on as well. But the area that I went wrong on was not showing you guys any of the steps that I had to kind of put in place to get those projects going. I was just so busy that I didn't have a chance to. So this is kind of my own personal redemption to kind of make a video start to finish on everything that I'm doing to complete this project. The first step when making any kind of project like this is really kind of determining how big it needs to be, right? How tall it needs to be, how wide it needs to be, and so on. And for me, I personally really do like the extended tables. It's better to have more space than not having enough, in my personal opinion. So I chose the table length to be 8 feet. I wanted the width to be about 30 inches, and with these kind of dimensions, you obviously need some heavy-duty legs, right? Because there are going to be some heavy tools potentially sitting on the table. There's going to be other pieces that woodworking pieces that I'm working on that are going to be on the table. So I'm actually starting off the project by kind of cleaning up the legs, which are 4x4s. Just, everything was purchased from Home Depot, but the legs that you're seeing right now are 4x4 pieces of lumber. And the tool that I am working on is it's called a jointer. I don't want to go into all of the details with all of the tools that I'm using because it's just going to be, I'm not that technical on it. I just know kind of what they do. But the point in this tool right here is to create a flat surface on the bottom of any given piece of wood, which is what you're seeing me do right now. And you can also do this on one of the sides, is generally kind of the process that people take to make a square piece of wood. And this is kind of the what you want to chase when you're creating any type of table or really anything like that. You want even pieces of wood. You want the wood to kind of fit together like Legos rather than having to force things together and then things aren't even and so on. So I basically do this entire process for almost all of the pieces of wood that I generally tend to work with on any given project, just because I like the look of a clean cut piece of wood, and it also helps with measurements and keeping things even and so on. So like I said, I'm starting with the legs here, and then I will eventually be moving into the longer 8-foot pieces of wood that are going to be used on the tabletop. So one of the things that I was initially kind of worried about when taking on or doing the process in this way was that this jointer, is what this machine is called, like I mentioned, is not usually meant for big projects or big pieces of wood like I'm using right here. It's usually meant for cutting board pieces, for maybe small tables and so on. But this 8-foot piece is quite a burden to get through this machine, and I did have to kind of rig a few things to hold the board in the back so the weight is kind of evenly distributed and so on. But after some patience and a lot of planning, I was able to start getting these boards across the jointer to cut off an even piece of wood from the bottom of the board there, which is essentially making a flat surface for me. So for this project specifically, I am chasing a width of 30 inches, like I mentioned. So each of these boards are actually 2x8 boards, so they're pretty big as far as just regular boards go. They're not 2x4s or anything like that. So I do have 4 of these that I need to run through this jointer to create a even flat surface on one of the sides. So you can see here that after doing the large side, one of the large face of the board, I actually turn the 2x8 on its side to create a flat surface on one of the small sides as well. So this is basically done, like I said, it's just kind of common practice when you're trying to create a completely square board. You want to start with the larger face there, and then after that side is done, you can put that flat face against the flat fence is the area that I'm going to kind of outline for you right there. And then that way, when you push the board through on the small side, the small face, it should be a pretty even cut. So I basically complete this process for all of the boards. Thankfully, it didn't take too long because I had some assistance with the extra wood in the back to hold the board for me. And then I also had some support in the front that I added into my jointer table that I also made as well. So after that was completed for all of the long 8-foot boards, I can now start using my planer, which is what you're seeing me kind of adjusting right here, trying to basically get it to the right height. And the way that this machine works is that you need to ensure that one side of the board or whatever it is flat, and then it is actually going to create a flat surface on the top of the board using the bottom as a kind of as a base. So this is why it's really important to ensure that you have a flat surface to begin with before you run it through the planer, because if it's not flat, it's not going to come out evenly. So this machine, this planer in practice is actually pretty simple to use. All you really need to do is essentially push the boards through the machine until they get to be the dimensions that you want them to be, and essentially they become the thickness that you want them to be. So because I'm making a table in the way that I am, where I'm joining all of these boards on the sides, you essentially need them all to be the same thickness. So what I'm doing is I chose the board that felt to have the least thick side to it, and then I ran that through and essentially followed by running all of the other boards through, matching the thinnest thickness that I initially had on the thinnest board. I know that probably wasn't the best explanation for what I'm doing, but like I said, I'm not here to give you a technical explanation. I'm just trying to explain what my thought process was when I was running all of these boards through the machine. So then after the boards have all been ran through the planer, I wanted to do a little bit of a test fitting just to see, not necessarily a test fitting, but just kind of a alignment to see if the boards actually did come out with the same thickness. Obviously, with this being a project that's not really going to be front and center in my house. It's a woodworking bench, it's a garage bench, it's a auto repair bench. It's basically going to just hold a bunch of my tools and so on. It doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, like a dining room table or something like that. So I still wanted to make sure that the alignment or the thickness was relatively consistent, because I just wanted something, I wanted something to feel relatively even, and you can kind of see me testing that out here, and I was pretty pleased to note that it was very, very close. I think a lot of things can kind of go wrong when you start dealing with long boards like this, but thankfully for what I'm doing, it was very, very close, and it will do just fine. So one of the last steps that people generally take when trying to create a completely square board or whatever it is by cutting off a chunk of the side of the board that hasn't really been touched by anything to match other boards that you're working with, right? So this essentially creates them to be all the same length, the same thickness, everything, the same width, everything. So usually people will take their table saw in kind of the way that I am right now, and then cut them all to the same width. I didn't choose to do that because for me, I didn't need them all to be exactly the same. I just needed the thickness to be the same and I needed the length to be the same. Those two were the most important aspects. I did want to still run each of the boards through and cut a sliver off of the edge just to try to make it as flat as possible, as square as possible, just because when I was doing some of the test fittings, I noticed some parts of the boards were a little bit uneven, a little bit less flat than the other side. So I did run all of them through just to pull a little bit off, a little bit of wood off of the other side. It looks a bit sketchy the way I'm doing it right here. I've got it on the ground. I'm using a hose attachment to kind of push the board through. The blade is relatively dull on this, so I need to think of something a little bit better way to do this, but I think it worked just for my purposes here. So the piece of equipment that I just put on screen in hopefully somewhat of a stylish way is what's called a double max. And what it does is it basically creates these pockets that you can not then put in these little pieces of wood. You may have seen them on IKEA furniture and stuff like that. It essentially just helps with alignment, and it can actually provide some extra strength to the pieces of wood that you're working on. You can see here that I'm kind of using it in action right here. I wanted to put one dowel on each of the ends of the board, and then I wanted to put one in the center. So you can see on the right of the screen I have, I had previously completed one, and I have a piece of wood that I'm kind of setting against it to use as a consistent measurement. I don't want to show, this entire process of me doing it because it's essentially just drilling a bunch of holes, or not a bunch necessarily, just 3 in each board on all of nearly all of the boards there, so then I can join them together to hopefully get a very consistent, very even join when I do decide to put them all together. So here I have all but one of the boards merged together using the dowel technique that I previously just showed you. So I'm grabbing the last board here and I'm going to be aligning it so hopefully they all fit nicely together. And this part is the moment of truth. I'm trying to shimmy it on, ensuring that the fitment is aligned as it should be. And check out this thrusting motion right here to get it in. Perfect, right? But it is a pretty solid fit. As you can see, I'm kind of just running my hands along it just to see if there's any kind of blatant areas that are uneven. And like I said, it is not perfect. I think that's just due to the length of the boards. But other than that, I am very happy with the result. So now that the boards are all pretty evenly together, I feel pretty good kind of securing them. So a lot of times I would use, or normally I would use, and I think a lot of other people would use wood glue. So they would put glue where the dowels are and on the thin side of the board, and then they would squeeze the boards together and let it sit for, a day and a half or a day, whatever it is. And then, basically call it good at that. But I didn't really want to mess around with glue this time around just because of how much of a mess it makes, and I just really didn't feel like doing it because it is going to be a wood shop table after all. So I took these shorter pieces of 2x6 and I'm actually putting them on the bottom of the table. And what this is going to do is I'm putting construction screws, I'm sinking them into this board that's going essentially perpendicular to the long boards, and then so that way it'll dig into that board as well as the board, the tabletop board underneath. And I did, I believe, four of these supports throughout the entire table. I did 2 on each of the ends, evenly spaced from the ends, and then I did 2 in the middle that were evenly spaced as well. So after I finished up adding the 4 supports that are going to not only keep the boards together on the bottom side of the tabletop, but they're also going to act as a additional support for the entire table itself, I'm now prepping the table legs to be joined to the bottom of the tabletop. I am using this pocket hole jig is what it's called, and it basically allows you to create pilot holes that are going to be hidden that you can then use to put screws in to cleanly join two pieces of wood. And I'm kind of showing you a close-up of what those holes will look like, and then basically a screw will just be put into, will be drilled into that hole there. So after I finished up creating all of the pocket holes in all of the legs, getting them set for the table, I started to align them in a way where it was going to be even. I did leave a little bit of overhang on the side and the front of the table, as you can see right there. And I'm actually using another pocket hole to fasten the table leg to the bottom of the table itself from a different angle. So not only am I going to use the pocket holes that I just created using, in the last clip, but I'm also securing the legs to the bottom of the table using this additional pocket hole that I just made. So after joining all of the legs to the bottom of the table, I then wanted to add a little bit more support between the legs on that are near to each other. So here's the one of the two supports that I'm creating between these two near legs. I know the camera angle here isn't exactly ideal, and I do apologize for that. For some reason, these were a little bit difficult to get in. I don't know if it's just it was at a weird angle or whatever it is, but by kind of forcing it in there, I was able to use the impact to ensure that the support between those two legs was very tightly secured. So hopefully this will last a relatively long time. So after creating all of the new supports between the short end of the two legs, this is kind of what it looks like. I was really happy with this because it felt like it was going to be really sturdy, but I wasn't quite done there. I thought that was just a funny clip because it was kind of just me being careless, but I also wanted to add a support on the long end of the legs. I've had some other experience with some of my other tables where I really regretted not putting in both short and long support. So this was something that I really wanted to do for this table because it will be load bearing. There's going to be projects on top of it, equipment, and so on. So here I am kind of picking a good location to put it, and I'm also trying to level it so that way not only does it look good, but it's going to function good in the long run as well. So after that is completed, I use this right here to essentially put my table on wheels. This is just a $20 product from Amazon made in China. Unsurprisingly, but it works very, very well. Essentially what they are wheels that you can activate and deactivate from the bottom of your table legs, making it so you can move it wherever you want, and then when you want to keep it in one spot, you can raise the wheels up and it will essentially stay wherever you want it to. I've used it on a couple of my other projects and it's worked very, very well, so I thought I may as well use it for this larger woodshop bench as well. So at this point I've gotten all of the wheels and the rest of the assembly on all four of the legs, and I was actually feeling pretty good about everything until I started to actually test how the wheels are going to work when the table is on the ground. So this is me right here essentially kind of playing around to make sure that the wheels aren't going to get in the way, of the legs when the table is sitting flat on the ground. And I noticed that I made a very, very big mistake. So obviously when the wheels are engaged like they are right now, you want them to, in this case, be higher than the bottom of the table, so they are the only thing making contact with the ground. And when you disengage them like I just did, you need them out of the way, and you can clearly see that unfortunately they are not. So even when the wheels are disengaged, the table would technically still be rolling around. And this is completely my fault because you are supposed to install them 1.5 inches below or on top, of the bottom of the leg, and I, for whatever reason, did not follow that rule. So now I need to go back and redo all four of them. I am going to save all of you guys the trouble of watching me redo all four of those wheels, but I did adjust them, and this is me basically testing the table out. I flipped it over, I put the wheels on rather, I flipped it over, and now I'm actually seeing how good it feels when I'm rolling it around, when I'm spinning it, and when I have my hands on it. I did go over it with 150 grit sandpaper just to give it a decent finish to the touch. But other than that, it feels really, really good. There's no creaks, there's no shakes. The center of the table feels very, very solid, which is exactly what you would want in a table like this. But that is going to conclude the build for this table. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.